Welcome, everybody. We are back for another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, you and I get to meet an author brand new to us. I have not met this woman before tonight, and I don't know her stories yet, so I'm really excited to discover her writing. So today, Joyce Yarrow is here with us, all the way from the Seattle, Washington area. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I've been watching some of your shows and enjoying them. I just love your energy and how much you love books and writing, and it's great to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. I have a really good time. My enthusiasm meter it tends to be off the charts when it comes to the written word. So what you get is what you get.
I'm ready.
So tell us a little bit about how you first decided you wanted to be an author.
At a pretty young age, I used to go to story hour at the library, which I was saying to you before, was a
Mm,
safe place in my neighborhood in the Bronx to go. Uh,
absolutely.
and my imagination was really stimulated. And I started writing at a pretty young age, just little short stories about kids in my neighborhood. And then I began writing songs and playing guitar. And I got into the High School of Music and Arts. So I started sort of thinking I might have a career in music, actually. And I did um, do a whole tour as a singer-songwriter that kind of got the words flowing. But
That's
my main
exciting.
yeah, really. So kind of the difference between writing song lyrics and writing poetry is quite, large. And so I started exploring the more literary world as well because I met poets when I was living in New York. And when I was 17, I had the bus poems published in this little magazine in Brooklyn. And I was like so excited because there was
Well,
11 poems
sure.
that they chose, and it kind of
That's
changed my life.
wonderful for a first exposure. 11 pieces. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it really changed my life, and I just couldn't believe it actually. So I just kept writing poetry, and then when I moved to the West Coast, I was doing music and screenwriting, but I always wanted to write a novel. And my brother, who grew up with me in the Bronx, he went to the Air Force and into intelligence in the Air Force, and then started his own company when he got out, and became a private detective. And he and I used to fool around with crazy ideas about crimes that you could get away with and stuff like
Great
that. And so,
fun. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful material for book writing.
yeah, it's like having your own subject matter expert. That's your brother.
Yes, yes.
Plus, he kept me honest. He says, all these writers, they write about detectives, but none of them ever get paid. And that really upset him. So I really, took all of his advice and put him into the Joe Epstein mysteries. And I was also, continuing to play music. And I worked with a world music group for about 12 years here in Seattle, and we played all these festivals, and we sang in 21 languages. And
Wow.
yeah, we would all bring in different material to do. And I brought in a song that was written in the 16th century uh, called Cuando Reina Murad. And it was from the Convivencia in Spain, the time when the Jews and the Muslims and Christians they collaborated together as artists. You'll find like many Hebrew Bibles with Islamic art in the margins. It was really a wonderful time. And the Inquisition was on the horizon and kind of destroyed that. But I became really interested in just that period of time and what happened. And that's what gave me the inspiration, part of the inspiration for writing Zahara and the Lost Books of Light.
And that's the book you're going to read for us tonight.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
How wonderful. What a great idea to take a piece of enlightened history and write fiction about it. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and I kind of started looking at, well, did people oppose this? Did people support it? And even today, there's people that argue about what actually happened because some people are more invested in conflict and other people are more invested in harmony. And so there's,
Sure.
for a writer, there's your basic conflict, right there. And I also, I was really influenced by Bradbury in writing this book because, as you know, in that book, all the firemen, their jobs are to burn books.
Right.
And
Right.
so at the very end of the movie, however, and the book too, but I think the movie kind of rewrote it a little bit. There's these book people, and they're walking along the river, and all of them are reciting books that they've memorized. And it
Hmm.
really hit me so strongly, and because
Yeah.
we were keeping this culture alive no matter what they had to do it.
Yeah.
And
That was a really profound scene in the book. It was the final scene in the book as well. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited to hear an excerpt from your book. And this is the first of a trilogy, correct?
yeah, the first two books are out. Zahara came out a couple of years ago, and then Stolen Lives just last year with all bilingual press. And there'll be a third book coming out too.
So are these books printed bilingually?
Yeah, yeah. So they're from all bilingual press, and they're available on their website, and then they also distribute all around the world.
So is the printed book itself in two languages or is it
Oh,
just in English?
this one is just in English, but there is a
Okay.
Spanish version that was
Okay.
translated by the editor at All Bilingual Press, which was a big surprise, a very happy surprise for me to
Yeah,
have a
that's
Spanish
exciting.
edition. Yeah. And there's also a
Absolutely.
Portuguese edition too. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing some. So I understand you're going to start with the prologue tonight?
Yeah, I do. I do. I guess this is
Okay.
a few,
So
isn't it?
this is Zahara and the Lost Books of Light with Joyce Yarrow. When you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Okay, here goes. So this is the prologue. It takes place in Granada, Spain, October 1499. The windows overlooking the Plaza de Bibarambla have been tightly shuttered against the moonlight. Paved stones suffocate under a deluge of books, codices with wooden covers, as well as loose pages heartlessly ripped from their bindings. Handwritten in Arabic, Aramaic, and Hebrew, many of these works are illuminated with gold leaf or inscribed with exquisite calligraphy, only to be thrown together like corpses in a heap. Thousands of tomes lie strewn about the square, stacked as high as the shelves that once occupied the libraries of Al-Andalus. The poetry of Mahaban ibn Hani, works of philosophy by Moses Maimonides, and commentaries on Aristotle by Ibn Rushd, scientific treatises, Muslim and Jewish holy books, all judged as heretical and in equal peril. The smell of incipient violence taints the air. The forbidden works are to be burned in public view for the purpose of instilling fear. If you insist on practicing your religion and fail to convert, you will share the same fate. Two ethereal forms float under the arc of ears leading into the square. Above them, a dozen severed earlobes caked in blood hang from the keystones, trophies from the day's executions. Ibn al-Arabi, the visionary Sufi philosopher, is clad in a russet brown robe. His piercing eyes are those of a devout skeptic. Beside him glides the Jewish Kabbalist Rabbi Abraham Abulafia, dressed in a flowing white gown with wide sleeves resembling wings. Bearded and wearing tightly wound turbans, the figures hover above the ground in a diaphanous mist, incorporeal and invisible to the untrained eye. They converse in Arabic, although words are not strictly necessary for teleporting mystics who tarry in a world more than 300 years beyond their own time. Tomorrow, when the sun sets, 1,000,000 tomes will be set to the torch, laments Ibn al-Arabi. Countless copies of the Quran, immortal love songs and poetry, and works written by Jewish and Muslim scholars on the subjects of philosophy, medicine, religion, history, botany, astronomy, mathematics, and geography will soon surrender their wisdom to the fire. I fear light of the intellect will be among them. Abulafia surveys the chaos in the square as if searching for his masterpiece. So kind of you to worry about my work when your own may well be fated to go up in flames as well. Ibn al-Arabi gestures at the workmen erecting the wooden ramparts upon which the words of their brethren will soon perish. Tell me, Abraham, is there no way we can save these treasures from the Inquisition? Must we stand idly by and watch the blaze of the devil's tribunal incinerate the last remnants of a glorious age? Abulafia bows his head. Carrying it to safety is sadly beyond us, yet I have no doubt we were summoned to this place for a purpose. He gazes into the pre-dawn light beyond the spire of the nearby cathedral, searching for a sign. When none reveals itself, the rabbi bows his head. Perhaps we have failed in our mission. Wait, says Al-Arabi, taking notice of a worker approaching them. Wearing a frayed shirt and torn pants, the young man nonetheless carries himself with nobility. From the way he squints, their forms are only vaguely visible to him. He kneels before speaking. My name is Tahir, and I prayed the jinn would come to help us. Well, we are neither spirits nor earthbound humans, young man, and we need your help. Ibn al-Arabi salvages a stiff sheet of sheepskin parchment from the scattered remains of a codex, and using a finely pointed metal pen, draws a detailed map on the back. Tahir, sweet boy, you will be our hands. Gather as many books as you are able in the short time left until daybreak. I will conceal them beneath a cloak of invisibility, and tomorrow, upon your return, you may transport your charges to a safe location. This I will do. Tahir takes the map and hides it carefully beneath his shirt. Hey, you, get back to work. A guard who sees only a Muslim slave talking to himself walks towards the threesome. Abulafia quickly whispers a spell, and Tahir and the pile of books vanish from the soldier's sight. Holy Mother of God, what was that? The sentry vigorously rubs his eyes before shrugging and resuming his rounds. With the way clear, Tahir gets back to his labors. Feverishly, he collects the condemned books and manuscripts, securing them in a far corner of the plaza. He notices Al-Arabi cradling a thick tome bound with leather and wood. Shall I take that one too? Only after our departure. The Sufi sage runs his hand lovingly over the word Zahara, ornately engraved on the weighty cover. He opens the book to reveal thick pages written in Aramaic and another older language even he does not recognize. There is a sound of rushing water, and as Tahir watches in disbelief, the illuminated text blurs into waves of gold. The entire page has disappeared, replaced by a dark rectangle, mysterious and beckoning. We must be gone, Abulafia whispers urgently. The sun is rising. He intones some intelligible words, and the visitors transform into two steady streams of light, flowing through the portal with a faint whoosh. The cover slams shut, and Tahir reverently deposits the book atop a stack in his care. The sages continue conversing in the ether, traveling back in time at a deliberate pace. There is still much to be done if the books are to survive. We will need help, Al-Arabi observes. Don't worry, my friend, Rabbi Abulafia replies. I have found the perfect instrument. If all goes to plan, she will reach us in due course and play her part. And so that's the prologue. And all of these books, some of them have been rescued from the fires of the Inquisition. And I'm going to jump forward in time in the book to where Alienor Crespo, the protagonist of the book, who's a journalist from Seattle. She's gotten very deeply into the mystery of what happened to these books, and she's discovered the underground libraries of Zahara that have been there for 500 years. And a murder has taken place in a house above the libraries. And this scene is set right after that happens, or a couple of days afterwards. It was late afternoon, and I'd barely had time to unpack the clothing I'd brought to Celia's place from the Airbnb. The smell of simmered oregano and fresh garlic wafted down the hall as my cousin puttered in the kitchen, humming to herself. We ate outside, devouring grilled vegetables and slices of bread topped by Serrano ham that would have horrified our ancestors on both the Jewish and Muslim sides. We washed it all down with a bottle of Tinto. When the red wine made us sleepy, Celia brewed up some Belgian coffee, a Crespo tradition I first heard about from my great-aunt Lucia during a visita in southern France. I showed her the family tree I'd recently updated in my notebook. It's still hard for me to believe I traveled with Lucia and Jafar on the Freedom Trail. Celia's eyes lit up. Grandma used to talk about those days, but never in such detail. You really do have a talent, Alienor. Not by choice. I consider myself a logical person, mistakenly connected to the inexplicable. This kind of gift is never an accident, Allie. I sensed you were special as soon as I met you. So did my mother. You have direct experience of things about which we can only guess. I believe you were sent to us for a reason. Every day, the protective gear wrapped around my psyche became more like a Kelvar vest made obsolete by an invasion of disarming friends. It would take some time to let it all in. Time I didn't have right now because Zahara was under threat. Celia, I'm sorry to bring this up, but I've been wondering how the killer knew about the biometric lock. How did he know Carlos's thumbprint would be recorded in the database? My cousin winced. I've been asking myself the same question. Every day, new librarians swear an oath of secrecy in the ceremony similar to the one that you were part of today. Theirs is not a vocation that can be inherited. It's a commitment of the heart and soul, which is why we recruit most librarians from outside the community. They must be willing to retire from their professional lives and live in relative isolation, since all we have is each other. We're very close-knit. Has a librarian ever left Zahara and moved elsewhere? I know what you're thinking, Allie, and it's impossible. For Zaharans, the well of loyalty never runs dry. I soldiered on. Painful as it is to consider, someone out there knows more than they should. In all those years, you can't tell me there hasn't been one case where Celia had the look of a cat being dragged by the scruff of its neck towards some food it detested. There's probably nothing to it, but Roberto Diaz left our community a few years ago. He moved in with his daughter Carmen in Madrid, where he was being treated for testicular cancer. Roberto oversaw what used to be the Christian Mystical Library. It's now combined with Reb Hakim's Library of Mysticism and Wisdom of all faiths. Whom did you recruit to replace Diaz? No one. We kept expecting him to get well in return. Diaz was the first librarian to leave a house empty since the founding of Zahara. Their place was sealed off from the tunnels and sits there empty, sad, really. I think I'll take a look. Why not? It's nearby, but you'll have to go on your own. I got a delivery of raw silk to make at the Charter House. It's a tradition with us. The converse nuns, including my mother, are excellent spinners. They market their wares through a vendedor at the outdoor market in Almendrales. Is this the vendor by any chance named Maria? I still had the map that the almond seller had provided. Cousin, you know far too much for your own good. We'll have to keep you here permanently. After savoring a dessert of homemade flan that Celia miraculously found time to make, I exchanged the dress shoes I'd borrowed from her for my well-worn trainers and walked through the orchard toward the house where Carmen Diaz and her parents once lived. Although the hour was getting late, there was plenty of light left. The house looked deserted, with the exception of some overgrown herbs and stubborn wild flowers in the kitchen garden. The wide windowsills set heavily worn stone and were reminiscent of the sturdy Amish farmhouses I'd seen in Pennsylvania when I visited Joel's family. Those Amish are stuck in the past, his father had said derisively as he drove us through the countryside. Better to live in the past than waste the present. My wisecrack had earned me a disapproving look from Joel. I'd let it go, and we were already married when I kicked myself for not heeding this warning that he wasn't the right partner for someone like me. Cautiously, I mounted the decaying porch steps of the structure that had prodded my memory. I twisted the round knob on the front door, and it opened easily. Had some hippies wandered up from the lowlands to squat in this remote location? In that case, I'd assume bedsheets would be covering the windows instead of plywood. The atmosphere inside the house was musky with neglect, so I left the door ajar. I was breathing in the scent of lavender from the garden when, mid-breath, my air supply was cut off by a brutal chokehold. Unable to turn my head, I couldn't see my attacker's face. A sharp object pressed against my side, making escape impossible. Applying pressure on my Adam's apple, he pulled me outside and marched me downhill, away from the abandoned house and through the lengthening shadows of the trees. Each labored breath felt like it might be my last. I pictured Dad's distraught face when he heard of my death and wished I had listened to his warning. We stopped in front of an equally derelict but smaller outbuilding, surrounded by a wide veranda cluttered with upside-down barrels. Stay still, he said in English, running his warm, sweaty hands over my ice-cold limbs. I was still wearing the thin, dark skirt and tailored blouse Celia had loaned me for Carlos's memorial. No cell phone, huh? His whisper was hoarse, a movie gangster's rasp. Close your eyes and keep them that way. He spun me around to face him while he completed his search. I kept my eyes shut, imagining the knife gripped in his hand at the ready. When he was satisfied, I was clean of devices. He kicked the heavy wooden door open and gave me a shove that sent me soaring backwards into the darkness. There was no time to shield the back of my head before a searing pain threw me out of my body.
Wow, that was an exciting read. Not only from the prologue, which is so wonderfully introduced into the history, but then to this thrilling part in the
Oh,
middle of the
thank
book.
you.
So thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I gave it a lot of thought today. I thought what would be good to pair with the prologue because the prologue's kind of intellectual and everything. And I thought there's
Yeah,
a lot of action in this book too, and I'd like readers to know that. Yeah.
absolutely. I like to hear all the little slices of wonderment that live inside the books that we get to sample in this program. Let me ask you this. What was the biggest challenge you found in writing this story?
Oh my goodness, I didn't think I could do it. But and it doesn't come up in these particular scenes that I read, but Alienor, the protagonist, she has a gift of second sight. And by giving her that gift as an author, I was able then to open up history because she sees through the eyes of all of her female ancestors.
Sure,
And so some of them turn out to be quite different than her. She's Sephardic, she's from Seattle, and her ancestors were expelled from Spain, her Jewish ancestors. And now Spain had invited them back to become citizens. And she took them up on this offer, and that's what got her over there to begin with.
so
And so
did you find that transportation between cultures, was that the difficult part in writing this story?
at first it was, but when I realized that her gift would let her see through people's eyes, then it kind of gave me permission as an author to do the same thing.
Oh, sure.
So when
Yeah,
she becomes Juria, who is a Morisca bandit, and who's fighting against the Reconquista in Spain, she really is Juria. And so that distance just kind of evaporated. And I think it came from all those years of singing music in different languages and realizing that if you can start to see through someone's eyes or their ears, that you can kind of become them in a certain way and then empathize to the point where you can write. So it
sure.
the challenge actually turned into the gift, in this case, but it took
How
a while.
wonderful.
My writing group
That's
thought I was crazy
but
because
that's fantastic.
because I
Uh,
had been writing, straight ahead detective fiction, and all of a sudden this is more like science fiction in some ways, or magic
it,
realism.
yeah, it sounds a lot like magic realism with the introduction of second sight. That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest joy for you in writing this book?
The people that I met when I did the research and went to Spain and interviewed them. I interviewed a high school teacher who told me that he wasn't permitted to ever talk about the Inquisition or Franco or any of the things that happened during World War II in his classes. It was just, and so I started realizing it was important to write this book too, because in a sense, the history it portrays, some of it has been erased. And so then I became more motivated in thinking about, well, cultures need to be preserved in some way, and a writer can play, a small part in doing that.
Absolutely. I think writers play the biggest part, really. If you
Yeah, we
look at
try.
all of the sacred texts that we've passed down through the ages, and not just liturgy texts, but stories and memoir, those are some of the most powerful pieces of writing. So I think writers are pretty magical humans.
Yeah, yeah. And I felt like that this book brought magic into my life too. And that the people that I met in Spain, they would say, "Oh, you have to talk to so and so." And all of a sudden I'd find myself like one time I had lunch with some people and interviewed the father of the family. And then after lunch, after this incredible sumptuous lunch, everybody went to sleep in the living room. They tucked me in on the couch and we
Oh,
all took a
nice.
nap. It was like taking a nap with total strangers, and it was so lovely, and we woke up and started
That's a
talking again.
fabulous, what a great experience in connectivity through culture, right?
Yeah.
When you can feel safe enough to nap with complete strangers,
Yeah, really.
that
Coming from
that's
New
a pretty
York.
profound statement. Yeah.
Coming from New York, that says a lot. Yeah.
Well, I think coming from anywhere,
Yeah.
to have that level of security, I think that's a fantastic thing. How wonderful that you had that experience.
Yeah. Well, the arts do bring people together. I mean,
Mm,
music was my first experience of realizing that people could be literally in harmony, right? Because we're creating harmony
sure. Yeah.
in music. And so all the gangs and all the things that I grew up with got put into a different context and they became material for art and for writing and expression rather than being a burden. And so it's sort of an interesting thing. You can look at your life in so many ways, but as a fount of creativity, that's what my mom taught me. She was a really good short story writer, and I think she never stopped writing. And she started painting, I think, when she was in her 80s, just to take what you have and make something beautiful out of it.
Yeah. Well, and for me, storytelling, no matter how you do it, I think is an important part of being human.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I'm so glad that you took time to read for me today. I tell everyone I'm just a recovering 6-year-old. I love it when people read out loud to me. So if you would please come back on the program and read from some of your other books, I would be delighted.
Oh, I'd love to read from book two. I mean, it really takes off, and I think that's the whole series has changed my life, and I've met so many readers, and then to meet somebody like you that really appreciates what storytellers do and encourage, it's a terrific thing you're doing.
Thank you. I'm having a good time. It's all very self-indulgent.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you again, Joyce, for your time, and I appreciate it. And anybody who wants to find out how to get the book, check out the show notes. All the information is there. Have a
Hey,
great day.
you too. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome.